again, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with a continuation of my bear and bunny amigurumi tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, a big old thank you to Lion Brand for sponsoring this video. All right, so today we are going to work on the construction of how to take all the parts that we made in part 1 and make them into a cute and fuzzy little guy. All right. Most of the parts that I have are for the bear, so that is essentially what we are going to focus on doing as far as the tutorial is concerned. So we have the head, the body, the forelimbs, the muzzle, the ears, and the tail. So, gotta grab some stuffing and a little bit of the black yarn, and we shall get started. Okay, so there are a number of different ways that you can go about this. Personally, I like this method myself, which is to take the head and the body, stuff them, and sew them together so that we have a base to work off of. Now, that is a matter of some debate because as far as sewing on the ears and the muzzle and doing the facial features, it might be a little bit easier to do those facial features before attaching the head to the body so that you can get inside a little bit easier. However, to each their own, right? So just going to stuff these pieces together, and then we will sew, and so on and so forth. No pun intended. And really, it's very, very easy to attach these together. It's really just a whip stitch. Nothing terribly fancy schmancy, you know. But I do like to be thorough. And if you find that as you're sewing the pieces together, that you could add more stuffing, well, before you finish sewing the pieces together, yeah, by all means, add some more stuffing. You know, personally, I like for my little amigurumi things to be slightly squishy, you know. If they are very, very firmly packed, then I find that they're a little too stiff. You know, it's just, again, personal preference. But yeah, I think they have a nice amount of squoosh to them. So, got my one piece here. Now, after pulling the end through, I like to go in through that next stitch to make this edge just a little bit cleaner. And then, grabbing my second piece, I like to sort of line up the end of one and the end of the other, sort of like that. Sort of try to line them up a little bit so that the joins are near each other. And then what I like to do is from the top, going from the inside out, and then from the inside out on the top, and then into the next stitch, and then pull a little bit tight, and then into the next stitch to the top, and then to the bottom, etc., etc., all the way around. And then into the top, like so, and so on and so forth. Excuse me. So I'm going to stitch all the way around, and I will see you in a bit. All right, so I'm almost done sewing the head to the body. And one of the reasons why I like to do this part first is because for whatever reason, even though it is the same pattern with the head and the body pieces. Sometimes one appears to be a little bit bigger than the other due to stuffing or what have you, or the tension when you were stitching it together. That one can appear to be just a little bit bigger than the other, and it is the bigger one that I personally prefer to be the bottom, the body of the piece. Personal preference. You could go either way with that. So then after you're done stitching together, what I like to do is sort of reinforce the stitches by weaving the yarn through some of these stitches, going around in the same direction that we were going. And then eventually, after a bunch of stitches, inserting the needle at one point, out at another point, pull, and going to just pull this a little bit taut so that when you cut your yarn, it gets sucked in and you can't even see the tail. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so we have the basis done. Now as far as which piece I want to be the head and which the body, I don't know. They seem pretty much even. This reminds me of a peanut, actually. All right, so you know what? We will have this as the head and the body. Now, from here, we have various other things to attach, right? Well, we have the limbs, which I think might be good to add next. Now, most of them I have completely ready. This one, however, is still open from where we finished off. The others, I've already sewn them closed. So I'm going to show you what I like to do to prepare the limbs for attaching to the body. So after cutting off our yarn, I like to straighten out the opening and then just sew it closed again with a whip stitch, being sure to go through both loops of the V and both loops of the V on either side. You want this to be secure. And then just do a bunch of stitches across the top, closing it up. And then we're going to start sewing it to the body. All right, we shall do that now. All right, so first things first, I like to start with the arm placement. And pretty close to where we did our seams, our joins, about a row down from the seam. So, either here or down here, either or. I'm going to go up here. And again, just doing the whip stitch. Now, one thing I cannot stress enough is that the joining of your pieces adds a lot to the character of your finished piece. You want to take your time when it comes to positioning the pieces, especially if you want everything to have a symmetrical look regarding the arms, the legs, the ears, that sort of thing. You want, generally speaking, you want symmetry. If things look a little bit off, a little bit wonky, you'll be able to tell from quite a distance. You may want to do like a few basting stitches with the yarn, see how they look before sewing them into place like I'm doing. The first one, it's kind of arbitrary. The second one is the one that really matters. But basically, I'm just going from the arm, then into the body, from the arm into the body, just sewing back and forth, making sure that the piece is nice and secure, working my way through the stitches as I go. And then as far as the placement of the next limb, that is actually, I would say, the more important one. The first one is just general placement. The second one, we're going to go for symmetry, quite frankly. All right. See, there he is. Hello. All right, and then before I tie this off, what I like to do is underneath the join of the arm, again, weaving your yarn through a bunch of the stitches, securing it into place, and then do the cutting, running it through the body, and then pulling and cutting. There we go. All right, so then going into the body and then out at a random place further down. Pull and cut, and being very careful, you do not want to cut your project. Heavens no. All right, one arm down, one to go. And it's really that easy. Now, what I would strongly recommend, of course, is when you're doing the positioning of the second limb, use the line of stitches as your guide. So going around, and then so it'll be approximately about here, thereabouts. And so if I go into this stitch, working on it. There we go. Use this as my guide. Does that work for us? Yeah, that works. And then from the back side, how would it look? Okay, yeah, that works. You want them to be level with each other, even, that sort of thing. So I'm going to finish sewing on this arm, and we'll continue on with the legs. Okay, so at this point, you want to decide which is going to be the front side, here or here. I've already decided that this is going to be my front. And then from approximately the fourth round from the center, so it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, that's where we're going to attach our legs, just off center for the first leg. I'm going to start with the left leg. So going into there. That should be about right, I figure. Now, the reason why you want to go so many rounds away from the center is so that he can sit properly, like a good little bear. Yeah, that looks about right. And then the other one, again, will be slightly off center so that his legs will be, they won't be locked together in a struggle. So again, just going to do the same technique of whip stitching the leg on. Be sure to go to the very edge of your leg. Otherwise, he's going to have floppy limbs. You want to make sure that they are nice and secure on there. And then again, going through the underside of the leg, reinforcing those stitches, and then do the same snip off method. Now, if this is going to an adult who is a child at heart, which I am myself, you don't have to be quite so careful about attaching the various pieces, because generally older people, well, they're not quite so much into the rough housing. Smaller recipients, they like to test the limits of how hard they can stretch the limbs and so forth before they finally give out. All right. Yeah, so if it's going to a younger person, you might want to reinforce those seams and joins really, really good. Better to err on the side of caution, I say. All right. There you go. And besides, it's not a matter of being destructive. No, it just means that your bear is getting a lot of love. All right, and then just reinforce the stitches once again. Just weave in that end a little bit. Another one, and then the final entry, exit, pull, and snip. And the tail disappears. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to do the same thing for leg number 2. And, well, see, right now, I think the bear's name is Eileen. I'll be right back. All right, so continuing to work on the lower half of the bear, or bunny, it's still, either or at this point. So at this point, again, going to go slightly off of center again from, actually on center, from the fourth round from the center of the base. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So approximately right about here. And just go underneath 2 of those stitches right there. So lining up vertically there. And so the tail I already stuffed somewhat. I didn't seal it closed because we want to have it have a relatively round attachment to the rest of the body. So this part, it's a little bit trickier because you do want to go in a circular fashion as opposed to just attaching a join here. So you want to be a little bit slower, a little bit more careful about how you attach. You might want to add some straight pins so that you can put it into position. I just kind of eyeball it and wing it. And if I make a mistake, well, I can go back in later and undo the stitching. It's not very difficult. So yeah, just going back and forth between the body and the tail. And every now and then positioning and seeing if you're going about it correctly. And you want to be able to go through all of the stitches of the tail. Very important. You don't want to have any holes. So going in a relatively roundabout formation when you're attaching to the body. So if I stop here, about how does it look? How does his butt look? I think it looks pretty good. All right. It's like, Mr. Bear, it's okay. This does not make your butt look big. Trust me. So going in through the body just a little bit. And every now and then your loop of yarn will get tangled around a limb. It does happen. And then through the tail. And cinch those stitches nice and tightly. All right, are we still on the right track? Yeah, still looks good. Shake it, shake it, shake it. All right. And then through the body once more. And then through the tail. And then through the body once more should do the trick. There. And then again, just going to reinforce the stitches a little bit because this tail will inevitably get pulled on. So I'm going to reinforce my stitches, do the same sort of through the body, out another side, pull and snip, and we will be good. All right. All right, so we are getting some good progress here. Definitely, definitely. All right, now working our way up, we are now going to do the muzzle. I like to do the muzzle before the ears because that way we have a face and then the ears will frame the face. So, again, going in about the center, about a row up from the neck joint is where I like to begin. And so approximately about into, if I can get into here, okay. There we go. So about there, dead center, about a row up from the neck joint. And the muzzle is very much like the tail as far as the joining is concerned. You don't want to have it pinched too closed or anything like that. You want it to have a nice rounded appearance. Okay, so we're going to be attaching the muzzle in very much the same fashion. So after going in to the head, then go into the muzzle underneath both loops right there. And every now and again, sort of step back and see, does his face look all right? Does he have a nice mug? I think he will. And then into the body. And then into the muzzle, and so on and so forth all the way around. And this will give him some very definite personality. Yes, they call him Mr. Personality. All right. And then into the head. And then into the muzzle. And then after the muzzle, I figure we'll do the ears and then the facial features. The final touches on our little guy. And then through the muzzle. And every now and then, like I said, your loop gets caught around a limb. Be careful of that. You don't want to go all the way around and realize that, your yarn was wrapped around one of his arms. It can be a bit of a problem. Okay, so stepping back, how's he looking? I think he's doing all right. Okay. And back into the head. And then into the muzzle. Into the head. And into the muzzle, and so on and so forth, all the way around. And of course, because we added some stuffing, you can sort of squoosh around the muzzle a little bit and adjust it. It's not completely static. It does have some malleability to it, which is nice. And if absolutely worst comes to worst, you can undo your stitches. Because we're doing the whip stitch, it's fairly easy to undo and start over. It's not that much of a problem. So if you're unhappy, well, you can undo it. So how is he looking? Rather dapper, I think. Yes. Just a couple more stitches to go, and he will be ready to party. There we are. Ooh, hello. Feisty. And then into the head and then into the muzzle. And then, yes, again, I will do my reinforcing stitches, but how is that? Profile, front face, profile, yes. I think we got it. All right, so I'm going to do my reinforcing stitches, and I will see you when I'm done. Okay, so now for the ears. The ears, well, we need to seal those up first. So folding them in half, and then just doing a whip stitch to close them up. Something I always do with the ears. Don't ask me why. I always like to do this step first. And the other ear I already closed up. And then we will attach this little guy. Very, very quick, very, very easy. When you don't get a knot in your yarn, that is. Stuff happens. There we go. And one more stitch. Just a whip stitch. Nothing too schmancy. All right, so the ear is ready to go. All right, now, from the top center of the head, about the third round out, so that would be 1, 2, and 3. So approximately in the center-ish, third round out, so about here or so, roughly speaking, pretty much, in the same line of sight as the arm. And of course, at this point, it would be very easy for me to reposition if necessary. But how's that look? Is he looking dapper? I think so. Now, getting a side profile view. Yeah, that works. That does work. Now, when attaching the ears, I find that it's nice not to just go in a completely vertical line, but to try to cup the ear a little bit as you are attaching it. Gives it a little bit more personality, I find. Just a wee bit. So we already went through the head, going back through the ear. And then as we go down a couple of stitches, make sure that you have a bit of a curvature to your ear. So going to be going back away from the center a little bit, and then a little bit forward. Oop. Okay, went through some plies. Can I fix that? There, that works. Okay, and then back through the ear. Okay. A little bit of a curvature. Okay. And back through the ear. Okay, so then I went back a little bit. Now I want to go forward a little bit for the rest of the ear. These little things that do make a difference, I find. It's subtle, but I think it does work. See, we were going in the back, now we're going a little bit forward with the angle. Alrighty. So you can see there's, I mean, like I said, I know it's subtle, but there is a slight curvature here going on. And then the last stitch, bring it forward just a little bit more. I mean, do your ears go straight up and down? No, there's a bit of a curvature. Okay. And then, last but not least, to the head. Yep, get around the muzzle. Okay, and I can then do my reinforcing stitches. But yeah, see, there you go. Da 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 da. Oh, bear ear. Yeah. All right, now all I have to do is just add number 2, and he will be able to hear all of the great gossip. All right, so I'm going to do my reinforcing stitches, and then I will do the other one, again, with symmetry. So, for argument's sake, let me just thread this up. Okay, so for ear number 2, again, it would be the 3rd round, so approximately about here is where I would start. And then I would continue on in the same fashion. Now, let's see. Does that look like it's going to be right? Yeah, I think so. You know, give it the same curvature as we go. So cute already, and he doesn't even have any eyes. I love it. All right, so I'll do the reinforcing stitches on this one. I will attach this ear, and I will be right back. Boop. All right, so the ears are done, and all of the pieces are attached, ready to go. Now, as far as his little bunny counterpart, very much the same way as far as the ears. It is about the 3rd round from the center, and you really don't have to concern yourself with the curvature of the join. It's just a flat join, just making sure that they are, you know, symmetrical with each other on either side. And hey, let your hair hang down, you know, go for it. Yeah, very, very simple as far as the bunny ears are concerned. You know, I like big floppy bunnies. Some people, they like them when they stand up. I like the floppy ears. What can I say? So, onwards to the facial features. I have a bunch of the charcoal Pound of Love, and we are going to start in with those facial features. Alrighty. Okay, so as you can see, yes, the body is completely put together, and we are going to add the nose, sort of a little mouth muzzle on there, and then the eyes. Some people find that it's easier to do this part before attaching all the pieces together. I'm a rebel. So what I like to do is start by figuring out the placement of things. So dead center on the muzzle, that's where I like to go in for the tip of the nose. Let me show you here real quick. So, you know, granted, he also has his little mouth there too, but yeah, dead center is where I like to have the point of this triangle and then work from there. You know, if you have another method that you prefer more, hey, more power to you. So from here, as you can see, we already have a bit of a triangle. That point and then these 2 side dots right here. I like to use those as a guide. So just going in through and leaving ourselves a bit of a tail. And then, so in through the bottom, out through the top, then in through the bottom, and out through the top. Now, you don't want to pull these stitches too tightly because they will bunch up. You want to have a little bit of give to them. It's almost like we're doing the satin stitch with embroidery. Just going in and out of those same stitches. Give it a little bit of bulk, like so. And then eventually I like to do a stitch in between. There isn't an actual hole there, but we will create one. So sort of splitting the yarn there. It takes a little bit of finesse. There we go. See, right in the middle there. And we will go through there a couple of times. And just layering the stitches to create some thickness for our little schnazzy schnaz. It's got a cute little schnaz. And basically just trying to cover up the color of the muzzle with this black yarn. See? Got a little nose already. And then, once we have done that sufficiently, then we can also add in his mouth features. Now, what I think I'm going to do actually is swap yarns. I'm going to use my tail now, and I'm going to work on making his little mouth, which is very, very simple. It's just 2 lines. Well, fork down one way and a fork down the other way. Really, really easy. Again, you don't want to pull these stitches tightly because that will make everything bunch and pucker. It's one thing you don't want because it's very hard to undo. So you want to go a little bit loose. There we go. There, it's his little mouth right there. Cute as a button. But that is one thing that I do not use. I do not use buttons, actual buttons, on my stuffed animals most of the time because I want to make sure that they are nice and child safe. So this tail end, going to go through one of my existing holes and sort of squoosh the head. Pardon me. Sorry, I know this is uncomfortable for you. Through the back, pull that needle. There we go. Don't want to disturb his nose too much. There we go. And then the other end, the long end, we're going to use so that we can then do his eyes. Okie dokie. So I figure I can go in through his nose once more, perhaps. There we are. Now, direct placement is not crucial at this particular moment because we can shift it. So right now, I'm just going to sort of guesstimate, aiming for approximately around here, going through the nose, and then about just left of center. And again, yeah, I can undo this, but you want to go through one of the holes in the fabric there. And again, don't pull it too tightly. There. Look at that mug. So cute. All right. And then from here, we are all set to do the eyes. Okay, so at this point, essentially, picture that the holes are creating sort of a grid, kind of like counted cross stitch. So if we picture these 4 holes, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So going up at a diagonal, and then down, and then up at a diagonal into this hole here, and then straight down into that previous hole. And then follow the X that we've created. Again, you don't want to pull it too tight. So it'd be up at a diagonal and then straight down. And then up at a diagonal. So it'd be into this hole and straight down. And you just keep going over these same sort of stitch lines a couple of times so that you have enough layers of yarn. There, got a little eye. All right, and then after we do that a bunch of times, we can then do eye number 2. Now, of course, eye placement, whether you want them close together or further apart, totally up to you. Just keep going through those same holes, just over the same stitches over and over. So from here, I think I'm not going to make that any bigger. I'm going to go on to the next positioning. So going from there, and then over about 2 stitches worth. And again, up at an angle. And straight down. And then up at an angle. And straight down. And as always, if you are not happy with how he's looking, you can always undo the stitches. It's really not that hard. A little bit fiddly perhaps, but it is by no means impossible. It's certainly easier to do than if you were using thread. Using yarn, it's a bit more forgiving and a bit easier to find your stitches. There. So I'm just going to do this a bunch more. Thicken up the stitching. He's so handsome. He's so cute. He's got personality. And of course, if you want to add other embellishments too, like, eyebrows, or if you want his eyes to look as if they're sleeping, you could do horizontal lines. That's another distinct possibility. However you want to embellish his facial features, more power to you. Have fun with that. And then, when you're done, go in one last time, out through the back, pull out your yarn, and then one last squoosh. We good? Yeah, the little teddy bear. He's so cute. And of course, like I said, the form itself is pretty malleable, so get things relatively into position. Yes, you're good. You're ready to party. And then, so at this point, You can cut the ends, you can knot them, you can cut them, however it is that you want to do it. Me, personally, because I know that this is not going to be going to a small child, again, I'm going to do my pull and snip, pull and snip, and then with the eye of my needle, sort of poke that in a little bit because this is a contrasting color, likes to show up more. But there we go. Happy little finished bear. He can see, he can speak. He can tell us all of his little secrets. All right, and there you go. Alrighty, my dears, so that's going to conclude today's tutorial on how to make a little amigurumi bear or bunny, as the case may be. I want to thank all of you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give a little thumbs up button down below. You know that I appreciate your appreciation as always. And a big old thank you to Lion Brand for sponsoring this video. And until next time, you know what to do, right? I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay stitching, and please stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, everybody, and have a great day.